So you want to get into the world of drones. Maybe you just got your first drone and you're kind of trying to decipher this exciting world but confusing world of drones. So today I'm going to tell you about the tips I wish someone told me when I got into this wonderful sport of drone flying. Okay, the first tip is it is a piece of aircraft that requires flying, and there's a lot of technology around it. It's kind of like your phone. So the first tip is you got to practice, practice, practice. You know, your first flight is going to be okay. Your 10th flight is going to be even better. But really your 100th flight, you're going to be pretty dialed. So you got to get your hours in, whether you have a simple drone with no guidance or a complicated drone with so much technology. You got to learn all these menus, all these options that are available to you. The second piece of advice that I'm going to tell you is that you got to respect the weather. The weather is a big deal, whether it is raining, whether it's super windy, super cloudy, nighttime. These are all complexities that add to the drone experience. So you got to understand them. You got to see what your drone's capable of. You know, let me tell you, it does not like water. You might want to go into a cloud, and that's a problem right there. It does not like water. It's fully ventilated to cool itself off. But what that means is, you know, if it's wet outside, all the water is going to get into your electronics. And I had a very bad experience already. I'll tell you about it in a little bit. The third piece of advice that I'd like to tell you about is there really are two companies in the drone world. One is DJI and the other is everyone else. There's no competition in this category. So DJI is the gorilla of the space. They know everything because they've been doing this for over 10 years, and every few months they improve. So it's very difficult for other companies to compete. But what happens is, because they have a kind of a monopoly on the high-end drone market, then they can command their own prices. That's why they're very expensive, just to let you know. A couple other companies, Potensic and Autel, they're quite good, but they're nowhere near the horsepower of a DJI. And that's why you can't go wrong with them, but you have to pay a premium for what you get. Fourth piece of advice that I'd like to tell you about is that you gotta know your return to home and your obstacle avoidance subject tracking. So these are very cool technologies that are enabling the drone world these days, but really return to home is so important. You gotta know which one it is, it's where it takes off, and how to readjust it. In case you're in a boat or you're somewhere moving, it's gonna return to home when trouble happens. So if your home point is not where you want it to be, it could be 2 miles away, then it's a problem. Next tip I'd like to tell you about is the range. The battery range is such a key part of this whole category. So basically, battery range, they say 25 minutes. That's not the truth. That's basically best case scenario if it's hovering with no wind and not moving. Most often it's going to be something like 20 minutes. And if it's very windy, your range is going to go down. And that's because it's always fighting the wind. And that goes in conjunction with return to home. When it's flying, you're far away and it doesn't think, it's always calculating whether it can make it back home to you. And so if you are far away and the battery range is kind of, it doesn't think it's going to make it, it's just going to return to home. The next tip I'd like for you to understand is the devil. You know, power lines, branches, leaves, power poles, and whatnot. These are all the enemy. You know, the drone, even with obstacle avoidance, they don't like this. And when you're flying, you can barely see them, you know, on your little screen. And you know what happens? Even with obstacle avoidance, it's going to hit power lines. So you have to avoid them at all costs. And if they're high voltage lines, your thing is just going to blow up. So really respect these things. Leaves, big trees, they're okay. But as the leaves fall, you could barely see it, then that's a problem. All right, number 7 is know that you can repair your drone. Know that it's gonna break and that you can repair it. The most common break is the blades. You know, it lands kind of awkward and you know, blade broken. You can repair it. They give you a little screwdriver, but really you need a better set of tools so you can have an easier time. If your eyesight is very poor, maybe a little magnifier, but you know, things are gonna break and it's not the end of the world. The arms break, those are all repairable. YouTube videos are there to help you out. Also pretty common, there's a breakaway hinge on the arm, so the arm doesn't break, but the little hinge or holder breaks. So understand that one. Next tip I have for you guys is quite important, is that there's a lot of laws for flying a drone. It's a piece of aircraft that can be quite dangerous. So laws are tight and they're going to get tighter, and it all depends on what country you're in. Here in the US, we were regulated by the FAA, and a couple basic ones is you always need line of sight with your drone. Even though this thing has a range of 5 miles, you always need to see it. If you are on FPV, you need a buddy that can see your drone while you're FPVing your drone. So a lot of laws. You can't fly more than 400 feet high. That's a no-no. This concludes our best 8 tips for beginners. Just understand that every time you fly your drone and learn, you are going to get better, and you are going to be able to capture life's adventures better. If you have other tips to share with us and our viewers, please post in the comments below. Thank you.